Okay, the meeting will come to order. There are 5 minutes present. We usually form. First agenda item is to accept the minutes from the last meeting, which Nicole had circulated earlier in draft form, and they looked good to me.
I'll make a motion that they've seemed complete to me. I'll make a motion that they're accepted as written.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Those 5-0. Now we continue with the review of, the proposed expense budget for the year. How would you like to proceed this?
So we have Yvette is here for planning and development. And then after Yvette, we have our fire chief coming for fire. And then our solid waste and recycling director will be here closer to 4. As they close up shop for the day. So in between, we can do some of the other budgets. So if everyone wants to get out there planning include budget. Yeah.
Lots. You get in here?
Yeah. Going to the office.
You have to go into the office and like.
Is there any questions on this budget? So this budget is doing a shift with the planning and the TIP budget for our planning and development director. That's why you see a decrease in the salary there. Otherwise, we're holding the budget.
Cool.
Yep.
We're talking about planning and development.
Yes.
I guess I'd just like to mention, what I mentioned before, that perhaps there ought to be an incentive built into the development portion of the job to incent the employee to look for new business opportunities.
Any other thoughts on the budget questions? All we have it.
I'm good with it. So very tough.
Yes, Tom has joined us via Zoom. Hi, Tom. We're looking at the planning and development budget. You're muted. Do you have anything you'd like to add or any questions?
So you be both ways, do your need.
I don't have this meeting isn't locked. Like the select board is. Oh, there.
There we go. Okay.
Can I make one more comment? I'd like to note that the budget 5 years ago, FY 20 and 21, was $89,000 versus the request of 150. So that's an increase, a significant increase of more than 50%. I guess I'm the only one that cares.
I don't think that's true.
Oh, good.
Because I was kind of startled at the meeting, the ad hoc meeting on Tuesday for Bodenham Bodenham Days, to find out that we were contemplating some fairly expensive entertainments and so forth. And I just have a question about what we do have for a budget for that.
So,
Yeah.
Celebrate Bodenham is funded through our TIF districts,
Okay,
as is the newsletter. Open Farm Day and our other events are funded through our TIF.
okay, Tim, thank you.
And it's like 70% of her budget, isn't it?
Correct. And so the TIF budget is set once with the commitment. So we don't know what the TIF budget is going to be until taxes are committed, because it's based on, the value of the CMP property and the pipeline property with the mill rate. And that, once we know what our budget is, then we can assign the line items within those budgets. But with the TIF budgets, we're held to the approved programs. So when the TIF is approved, it lists the different projects and things that we can pay for, so.
I think maybe one of the takeaways is that although the budget has gone up, what we pay from taxation has gone down.
Well, that's good news.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the planning and development codes?
No, that out.
I would also say on, that since Yvette has come on board, the amount of grants that we've been successful in earning has increased mightily, and as well has taken a lot off of the town manager's plate, who was before Yvette, our previous grant writer for requests and such. So I believe there's lots of extraneous value that Yvette has brought to the planning department that merits those increases in the budget.
Could you be more specific?
I'm not right off the top of my head, sir. No, I could not, but I know that.
Well, Yvette, if you wanted to speak, so you got a 50,000, we got a Energia grant.
Yeah, so we've gotten I think it was like $38,000 no match grant for all of the street light upgrades and the LED upgrades in here, saving town money on not leasing lights anymore, and also they're not LEDs. You just got a $50,000 no match grant to assist with some of the shoreline stabilization that's going to be happening this summer at the waterfront park. I got up to 50/50 match grant for up to $25,000 to investigate the crosswalk planning project. Also got what was it, $740,000 grant from DOT to it was like a 70% match. I think it's around 70% match for the sidewalk from School Street intersection along Main Street to Post and Fisher intersection. The land for Maine, no, sorry, the coastal, what the heck is it?
Land and Water Conservation.
Thank you, Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, which is up to potentially $525,000 grant for the rest of the development that will be happening this summer into next year for the waterfront park.
And that was after just completing 2 grants for the first phase of construction down there.
Yes, we're still managing well, we just finished up managing the boating facilities grant and the shore and harbor one. I didn't write those grants and I didn't write the land and water conservation one, but it'll be in the, town reports, like $1.2 million since I had got money, so
$525,000.
up to,
That's significant.
that was before my time, but I think that the sidewalk one is
The
pretty, 740.
So this department has historically done a lot of the grants for the community.
When do you think someone, one of the taxpayers will be able to launch their kayak at the new ramp?
It will be opening it this spring. This spring. The
This
ramp,
spring?
yeah, it's all constructed, so it will be part of the spring work. We'll be getting docks and we have to do some work over there just to designate where the parking area is, because it's not finished over there, and to cut off the areas where people can't be. But yeah, that will be open this spring.
So the barriers will be removed,
They will be relocated
relocated.
because the whole park will not be open. And then at some point, we're hoping that some of it will be under construction this year and then it'll be finished next year.
Thank you.
But we're in design.
So essentially, the whole park project has been paid for with grants. I think that's
A
what-
good percentage of it.
We have that.
Yeah, matching funds.
the matching fund and cumulative, which are very limited in what they can be used for.
And that's why
As hard as we try.
And that's so Yvette and the Community Development Advisory Committee have been good about when there's been changes in the TIF laws, looking at our TIF and updating it to expand what we can do for different projects. So that's one of the things that CDAC is doing this year, is looking at expanding it so that it can include the town hall and renovations for municipal office. Because that was a change in the law that you can use you can spend up to 50% of the cost, up to another percentage of your TIF for the renovation or construction of a municipal office.
So there's no impact on the taxpayer for the waterfront development?
Correct.
Thank you.
We haven't used any. So the TIF is funded through taxes, but they're through taxes that are paid for the pipeline and that CMP.
CMP and
In the Northeast Pipelines, yes. So it's those specific properties that are in the TIF. Those property taxes are what fund the TIF. That's why we don't have the budget until tax committee. Concert series, that was the other big thing I was thinking of, the concert series is funded through the TIF as well.
Questions about the planning development budget? Hearing none, I'm sure we entertain a motion that we approve it as presented.
Second. So moved.
Second.
Jeff, okay, all in favor? On the question.
I noticed that the Historical Society has put in a request, and is that reflected in this budget?
Not in this department, no.
Oh, okay, so in this department,
Electrical services.
okay.
Yeah.
are we gonna be talking about that today?
I would like to,
Good. Good.
but right now it's just. I'll try to stay. I'll try not to wander too bad on you, Dave.
Okay, let's, we're dealing with the planning and development budget. George has moved, be adopted as presented, Jeff is seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Tom?
Aye.
6-0, thank you.
Right.
Okay,
Good job.
what's next?
Do you see our fire chief out there? All right, if you wanna grab your fire budgets.
You can start to come in one sector. Is
I
that?
looked at the time and I said, yeah.
So.
All right, so if we want to review the expense budget first, and then we can talk about the capital improvement program and of the budget. So I think the big change, which we talked about from last year and that you're seeing in the budget this year, well, two big changes. So proposing a full-time fire chief. A lot of that cost is offset in the fact that our ambulance contract is being reduced from 250,000, and it's actually going to be 100. I do have the final number now, but it's $177,477 or something. So it's just below 180,000. So last year we had 250,000 for an ambulance contract. That is going to be reduced by 70,000 for this upcoming year, which helps offset the cost of having a full-time fire chief. I don't think the 20 hours a week stipend is really enough time to do all that needs to be done. We're also doing emergency management, and I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there that there isn't just time for it. So I think that is the big change in this year's budget. So last year's budget, the big change was the ambulance contract. This year it's the full-time fire chief, which makes an increase of the overall department budget $130,000.
I guess the question that jumps out at me, and again, historically, we're paying 50 grand a year for Northeast ambulance. How can we understand that $180,000, which is better than what we were doing before? How can we understand that that's a fair price for the services?
Would you like to? So I'll just say, I think our options are extremely limited.
Gotcha.
I think Topsom offered 800,000.
800 2 years ago.
Two years ago. I think folks, ambulance service has come into the spotlight over the last year or two because of its cost. It's expensive. And I think people don't realize how expensive it is, because to have an ambulance staffed, right, you're paying someone 24/7 to be available for a call. There's costs in that. And I think historically we had a much cheaper price. I think at one time the town was paying like 500,000 with Northeast, partnered with Dresden, Richmond, Woolwich. With Northeast, we were each paying like 500,000, but Northeast was making their money on hospital transports. So I think the dynamics in ambulance service have changed.
So
If you could explain it better than I.
ambulance services typically, especially Northeast, when they moved into the area, they were doing a significant transfer volume. Midcoast Hospital, the main med, Midcoast to residences, Midcoast to any number of alternative facilities. In addition, they were working with Tobias Anatomy Medical Center. So a lot of those big dollar transports, which required very little interventions on their part for supplies and equipment, but it did require food. So they were making a lot of money doing it that way. In turn, they were able to come and approach the communities, since they weren't always busy on transfers, approach the communities and offer their services to provide the ambulance, so that they were generating funds 24/7 instead of just that an hour block that they were making on transfers. In doing so, they were able to offer significantly lower rates to the communities, because on the other side, they were making their funds with the transfers. As those transfers slowly started to dry up, be it alternative transport services, alternative for home health care, for whatever number of reasons, those transports dried up significantly throughout the community. Freeport has seen that, Brunswick did very little, but they've seen a considerable drop in the request to them. Northeast, their bread and butter was those transports, and that has gone up significantly in transporting from, Midcoast. Therefore, they're now no longer having that extra money on one hand, so they're gonna have to make it on the other hand to balance their books. They're still a for-profit service. So in doing so, their bottom line ends up going up, or their billing to the communities ends up going up exponentially because they're making up what they were losing on the other side. So we started with Northeast, I think, way back, we were looking at $2,500 a year for ambulance service. I don't know how the heck they would have made any money doing $2,500 a year, no matter where you're running. But I mean, a run right now, you're looking at $1,000, $1,500 just for that transport. So over the years, they have had to go up. And unfortunately, we hit that break point where we needed service. We didn't have any real options other than Northeast. We've approached Thompson, Gardner, those others. They're capable of doing it, but they're also looking out for their own interests right now. Thompson specifically, they want to build their community and they want to concentrate their efforts there so they can offer us the service, but their billing is going to be, as Nicole said, you're looking at 800,000 plus was the offer that was given to them. And that was, again, 2 years ago.
Lisbon is nonprofit?
Lisbon is a nonprofit. Yeah.
Okay,
Is it employee owned?
What's that?
Is it an employee owned? They do have an organizational structure. But that is one of the things that Lisbon, this town of Lisbon Emergency and Bowden and us are looking at is transforming it to more of a quasi municipal department's organization opposed to having it a separate standalone. So that's something that the community of Lisbon is wanting to see.
okay.
But it is currently a registered nonprofit. You can look it up and see all their market financials.
Could you say that again, Al?
It is a registered nonprofit. You can look up, it's a 501(c)(3), and you can see
Okay.
all of their financials.
Just asking.
Yeah, no, I looked it up. I'm right there with it.
One other question. How many ambulance rides do we do in a year?
I don't have the exact numbers. Past years, we've been 250, give or take. Not all of them transport. Some of them are show up on scene and there's no transport, a patient sign off. Alternative transport means personal vehicle, whatever it may be. But a significant portion of that 250, and we've been steadily increasing every year.
We're higher this
I
year.
think you're around 300 maybe, projected. Do we, actually, I didn't look at the last year, that 269 and 300. So yes, we're right around 300, 250 to
Okay.
300 annually. That's progressed from 155 years ago, give or take, up to that. So you're adding significant runs per year.
I can remember writing a check not that far in the distant past. I went 6 miles in an ambulance, cost me $1,600.
Yeah,
So this kind of puts it in perspective that if we're getting 250 runs at 170,000, that's, it seems like a fair price.
the sign offs, we try as EMF to minimize the need for them to respond out of their main response area as much as possible. So we're trying to evaluate and get a patient sign off as quick as possible, but that's not always the case. We want that next level of intervention with a paramedic, so they'll show up and do their paramedic stuff, and then they may sign off. But that still ties up the rig for that hour and a half, 2 hours of the call. It ties up their paramedic and their EMS, their operator, whatever it may be. So yeah, you're still looking at, whether it's sign off or not, you're still looking at some level that they need to respond in at least an hour of their time. And then turn around and they get a no bill for that because you don't charge for no transport and they go back in service, but they still did know the time. So
Thank you.
that's where that full amount ends up coming in, is it isn't just the fact that you get 200 transports, and this is to support just on 200 transports. The other 100 calls that aren't transports that are non-billables are also incorporated in that because they have to make back their to keep their baseline down.
Sure.
So they have their expense budget to operate. Then they have their revenues that they make from billing folks for transports, and the difference is what's divided between us towns. I believe it's Bowden and Bodenhammer 20% and Lisbon pays 60%.
Question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Do you and your people have all the training and equipment you need to handle a butane fire?
A butane fire. We have the initial equipment, we have the initial training. If it's any more in depth than a simple, I mean, if there's a mass amount of storage, we're concerned there. That's obviously going to incorporate mutual aid or other resources. If it's a hazmat situation, that would bring in EMA and other hazmat resources. Initially, yes, to make that an effort, evaluate and request the appropriate resources if needed. We have all of that.
Okay, 'cause I understand butane has been used for some marijuana process.
That's correct. And they will do some of the separations for that.
So I'm just concerned about that.
Yeah, that's along the lines of propane, natural gas, those types of fires that we deal with.
Where in the budget do we have SCBA tank testing and replacement?
So SCBA tanks, we are running our, what they call the 2216 PSI air tanks. We replaced 30 of those. We have 15 SCBA packs. And we have one fair bottle per pack. We replaced 30 of those. I'm trying to think, it was 16, 17, and 18, I believe. Those are 15-year tanks. My expectation is the SCBA units that we currently have are verging on 25 years old, 20 years old. They're an older style, they're an older model. NFPA establishes the standard, National Fire Protection Agency establishes the standards. The standards of the pack we had started in 1981. It was updated in 1994, updated again in the early 2000s, and updated again in the 2012, 2014. So we're still within standard, but we're at the end where those standards are going to allow us to continue working with those model of pack. So I believe in the capital plan, we've added SCBA for replacement. I'm hoping that this year or next, depending upon where it falls, we'll be able to fully replace those with the next generation and bring us back to. We're not in compliance. We have fully checked. I believe the equipment testing line does cover our annual flow test for those, as well as the tanks. I believe every 5 years I have to have those flow tested as well, pressure tested. Being a carbon fiber fiberglass cylinder, those are tested every 5 years.
So it's the capital budget we'll be looking at then.
The capital budget will contain the full SCBA replacement when we get to that point.
The last 2 years, we put in 25,000. 25,000 is planned for this year, and then that would be our third year, and then next year we're planning another 25, which would be the 100,000 for that replacement.
Packs are approximately $7,500 a piece. I haven't looked recently, and in speaking to the Richmond and Bowden chiefs last night at a meeting, they're also in the same boat where they're going to start looking. So we may try to combine our resources and see if there's any bulk of volume discounts available for us as a group when we move forward with that. So it's something that's kind of in the works, but we're not quite there yet for replacement.
Other questions for the chief? Gene?
Do you want the additional hours?
Do I want them?
He does.
I have a 40+ hour job, a week job currently, and I work 20 to 40 hours in Bodenham a week currently. So one or the other is eventually going to vary off the path. So yes, the hours would certainly be absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the expense budget, and then we can talk the capital budget? Any other expense?
On electric. It's not gonna be a big number, but we have. I just wondered with the rates going down 30% from 10 to 16. Cents a kilowatt hour to 10, and with us getting the 15% discount with the solar farm. And that's like 45% reduction to, would that affect your budget for electricity?
It may, however, if you look at my budget over the last several years, it's creeped up.
Yeah,
The reason being is originally it was the fire department to utilize the facility. Mondays were typically our training day. The facility was kept at 55 degrees because water doesn't need to be hot to put on fire, but it needs to be thawed. So we kept it at a reasonable temperature, 55 degrees in the day. We were there for 4 to 6 hours on a Monday. And from Tuesday through the following Sunday, we were in and out depending on if we had a fire. So there was no reason to keep the facility warm. We didn't use that much electricity. I've taken steps to replace with LED lighting and stuff to minimize that even further. Now that I've done those improvements, the popularity of the facility has gone out to the community. So I have, I think currently a half a dozen groups using it on any given time. I know I have the elderly community, community and aging. They're using it 2 days a week for bridge and meals and on cribbage. I have the Girl Scouts that typically use it on Sundays for their Girl Scout meetings. The Snowmobile Club uses it on a monthly basis. I've rented it out on occasional basis for birthday parties or whatever it may be. So what used to be a 4 hours a week is now you're looking at 20, 25 hours a week or more. So that kind of is where it coincides. Having that, I can't keep the building at 55. I think more comfortable for firemen coming in and sweating around. It has to be comfortable for the community. So the temperatures have gone up considerably as well. So that accounts for some of the electricity as well as the heating and stuff.
So we're a victim of our own success.
Ultimately, yes. It's fantastic to see the facility used the way it's being used. But yes, we're now at that kind of point.
So there is a slight decrease because we did do the Nexium. So, and I know right now rates are for electric are supposedly going down, but now they're also asking for them to go back up at some point too. And, you know, so I'm trying to, you know, we're looking at usage. I know we were keeping the heat at a higher, the
Yes, the
base heat is staying higher, so it's not as much work for the electronic heat to get it up and back down, but we are using more energy at the location.
That's it. Older, I say older. It was built in 1998, 1999 facility. It's radiant floor heat. Unfortunately, radiant floor heat isn't something you can go in at 3 in the afternoon and hope that by 4 in the afternoon you're going to have a warm facility. So we need to keep that at a higher rate for those coming in during the day or whatever. So I think right now it's right around 65 for the most times. I have heat pumps that the Fire Department Association purchased a few years back that are in that meeting room that supplements that. So the room is 65, they're able to knock it up to 75, 80 to make them comfortable. Or in reverse, we'll knock it down with the air conditioning that's involved with that as well. So.
Any other questions about fire and rescue budget? Well, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion that we approve it as presented.
So move.
From Jim,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Vote is 6-0. Okay.
All right. And then if we want to look at the capital projects for fire, we already talked about the tax. So this year will be year 3, next year would be year 4 to be able to get those tax updated. The other plans for, so originally we had last year 15,000 planned for the extrication equipment. And then we're gonna do 15 this year. The fire association has agreed to pay half. And because we've been doing the end of year transfer to the reserve, they're making that purchase this year. Which works out very well because that 15,000, and actually I think I have it at 20,000 for a new generator. Would you like to speak of your generator?
Currently the generator, again, went into the building shortly thereafter. It didn't come in 99, 90, 98, 99. It was early 2000s when that was added as part of the facility. Facility is a shelter and heat and cold emergencies. So we do function in that at that capacity. We're an emergency operations center if there is a major incident in town. The generator we have is just starting to age out. It's not functioning. It's not working. But it is becoming the life cycle where you're starting to replace parts and pieces and more parts and pieces as it goes. So it's at that point where we can buy bigger, better, cheaper, more efficient.
Is that diesel or propane?
That is a propane.
And what did we have to repair on it this year?
This year was a starter. It wasn't a major issue. Obviously, you can't run the machine without it, which came at the most inopportune time with the storms we had going through. But it was more the availability of the parts. It was a 3-week back order to get that to us. We could have taken one off the shelf from Napa. However, the technician was not really keen on doing so just because it's a known product coming from the manufacturer as opposed to the possibility of an unknown. And if they're going to support it, they're not going to really want to deal with the so.
And how much is the new generator?
The new generator, I've had one price. This was from the current technician. It was right around 22,000. I'd have to look back to get exact numbers. With that said, there was some components, the cement pad and things like that, that they included in their quote that would certainly not necessarily be part of that. So our belief is closer to 15 to 18,000. I would hopefully cover that.
But the request is 85, if I'm reading this correctly?
So, no, so you're looking at the overall for the fire department, so
To reserve.
the fire department reserve full request is 85,000. That 85,000 is 20,000 for the generator, 3,000 to future repairs, 20,000 to the future replacement of engine 1, 15,000 for the future replacement of tank 3, 25,000 towards the SCBA air packs, and 2,000 towards other equipment.
So that's not all gonna be expended this year.
No, so the fire department, as in public works, they have bigger, more expensive equipment, so if we can put with the air packs, instead of spending 100,000 in 1 year, we're trying to divide it up over time. So, and the other goal of this is to get off of the borrowing. So by putting money away for the future trucks, hopefully we'll be able to have half the money needed and we're only borrowing half the amount. So what we haven't talked about yet is engine 2. So I think we've talked about engine 2 the last 2 years. In the replacement of that, it's a 2002 truck. there has been a committee working on details, so once again, I'll let you.
So typically, fire service vehicles, I believe, in FPA standards look at a 10-year life cycle. We've stretched it out to 25-year cycle. That isn't to say they're in poor shape for repair after 25 years. It is to say that the technologies and advancements over that 25 years is significant enough that for us in the volunteer service, it's time to upgrade that piece of equipment. So in this case, engine 2 is a 2002 truck. We're at the 22, 23-year life of it right now. The anticipated build time is upwards of 18 months for a new vehicle. So you're looking at, by the time we would actually acquire it, you know, like 5-year truck.
And the cost,
Last year, it was 1 point something million, they call it right. This year, we're looking at roughly 750,000 lower. It's below 750. I haven't got an exact quote yet. The sales persons, everybody we've talked to, have been guaranteeing that it will be below 750,000, whatever they offer us, couple cents.
When did it go down?
What's that?
Why did it go down?
COVID. COVID was a huge problem with the supply line for metals manufacturing and motors, cabs and chassis. So that is, I would say, rebounded significantly, but it's rebounded enough to make a major difference in that. Originally, I think the current engine we have was right around 450 to 500,000. So in the 11 years that we've owned our engine 1, we've gone up another 250,000 thereabouts.
so what could you get for the number 2 now?
It would be, I won't say identical to our current engine 1. Our engine 2 is a commercial cab chassis. It has a 4-person seating, dual cab or dual doors. We are looking at kind of matching our engine 1, which is a custom cabin chassis, meaning that it's made more for firefighters in gear. If you ever try to squeeze in the back seat of a VW Rabbit and there's a big guy, it doesn't work. Kind of the same thing as a firefighter in full gear trying to squeeze into the back of a commercial cab. It's not the greatest, it works. So the commercial cab, 1 allows us to have 5 to 6 fire personnel respond to any given incident on that 1 truck. Not a big deal, mostly for volunteers, but when you get out on the Interstate 295, which is a significant portion of our calls, the safety then becomes a critical factor in not taking personal vehicles or additional fire vehicles out there. So having those 6 people available on that initial engine is critical for safety out there.
So could you sell the number 2 to
The resale of those typically at that life cycle, I believe we were fortunate with our old brush truck. When we disposed of that a few years back, we sold to Mohegan Island. But that was a perfect fit for them, a small truck. I think we ended up with $5,000 out of a $80,000 truck initially, give or take. Fire engines are a little different where, if somebody sees the need, there is a possibility to resale. But I'm not sure what value would be necessarily there. You're looking at maybe 10, maybe 40, but not much more than that in any given bad shape. In this case, the truck we have, again, being a commercial cabin chassis, there's no major problem with it. You make it to 10 to 20, possibly, and that's only a guesstimation I put it against.
So it's not a real fluid market for used.
No, I run vehicles in Maine in the wintertime, which is a big portion of bread and butter of fire services crashes in the wintertime. You're probably doing the same damage as your personal vehicle, and I'm not sure how many years of personal vehicles you get, but if you get 25 years out of your truck running in the roads in Maine, you're doing really well. So look at a fire engine doing the same thing, and you're kind of where we're at with those.
And we did have some repairs, not this year, but last year on the engine.
They weren't necessarily anticipated, but they weren't unexpected. We had spring shackles, which again, hammering around the roads in Bodenham in the wintertime, there's no way around hitting potholes and bumps and frost heaves and whatever else. So ultimately, one of the spring shackles was broken on that was replaced. That's I believe, the biggest major issue we've had with that truck. Unfortunately, the newer trucks we've had are all electronic, computerized and otherwise, so those components are what typically goes, and those are $3,000, $4,000 repair jobs for those. This one, I think, cost us $1,500, so.
Any questions on any of the capital items? So we talked about the replacement for two for, I think we started the conversation not last year, but the year before, and then we needed more information. The committee's been getting there. Obviously, we've been talking that we don't want to borrow. However, there isn't a way to get a fire truck without borrowing. So if we were to ask for town meeting approval next year in 25, our first payment would be due in 26, which just adds to our very high debt service because it's not to the 31. But if we order the truck and get approval in 25, we're getting the truck in 27, which puts our truck at the 25-year life. So
How many miles on the truck?
Miles on a fire truck are very tough to say. We have one, you're probably looking at 22,000 miles.
On the number two, how many
You're
miles?
probably looking at 22,000 miles.
22,000.
You're probably looking at 10 times that in the actual hours on the motor, because we don't drive after we get to a fire, but we run for another 4 hours at a fire.
Is it diesel or gas?
It's a diesel. All of them.
And how many hours on the motor?
That I don't have the exact numbers right off, but I would say I wouldn't venture guess, honestly. I couldn't honestly tell you exactly what I have around much.
Well, I used to finance over the road tractors, diesel.
Yes,
They run 1 million miles.
absolutely.
And then they do an in chassis major for about 12,500, and they go another 1 million miles. So, given the amount of debt that the town currently has, borrowing $750,000 sounds like a big bite. Sounds like the public works building, about half the public works building.
If you're looking to pull the body and add it to a new cabin chassis, you're still looking at close to 500 to 700. There's been other departments that looked at the same thing, the same possibility. Retrofitting and upgrading of all the components and being able to do that, you're still looking at a significant chunk of that 750,000.
I guess I'm struggling with. I get that it's 20-something years old.
Mhm.
I can remember you giving up a tour of the equipment
Yeah.
maybe 5 years ago. And I was impressed at how shiny it was and how clean it was and how well maintained it was. And breaking a shackle doesn't sound like the thing is ready to.
No, again, it's not that it's necessarily, as we know, ready to get off goes. But we're also not dealing with just driving to and from. We're dealing with putting firefighters' lives in jeopardy inside of a facility. We're dealing with the public being inside that we're going in to save. That I'm not looking to take that chance on a 26-year, 28-year, 30-year truck to say that I guarantee you it's going to be a safe truck because you're going inside and putting your life on the line based on that 30-year-old truck.
How old was number one?
And one is a 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to. I have a neighbor who's one of your volunteers, and I hate to see him at risk. That's hard to argue with. It's not price on that.
That's not necessarily the direction I meant to go, but at 25 years, again, NPA is saying in the big department, you're looking at, I say New York City, but the bigger firms, full-time departments, you're looking at a 10-year life cycle of the truck for just that reason. The pumps will run continually, the engine will run continually. It may not be body wear and tear, it may not be driveline wear and tear. Everything else you depend on as a firefighter are those components that are wearing out or that are eventually going to wear out: the pump, the motor, and that's where the concerns are.
So is it foolish to put it on a new cabin chassis? Is that?
So those are aluminum bodies, and again, aluminum bodies in Maine are good for a period of time, but there's a certain tipping point where you're just repairing rust, essentially, corrosion, decay. So you can certainly do it, and it's been done, and it will be continued to be done through other agencies, but I don't know whether that is the smartest use of what we would be looking for, because then you're looking at another 20 to 25 years. Now you're trying to get 45 years out of a body that really wasn't designed for 45 years.
Toby just was looking at a truck up country, and I think that's what he found, that it was rotting away.
You know, and Maine is not an easy place to have any type of vehicle. And again, you have a public safety vehicle that you run hard because you're getting from point A to point B. You're running hard, you're dealing with that sludge and slime, and then you're putting it in that situation for an extended period outside. Again, you're running 4 to 6 hours of 3,500 RPM, 3,000 RPM on motor, diesel motor. That's not bad, but that's constant running. On the pump, that's the same hours. You know, it may take me 3 minutes to get to that fire. It takes me 6 hours to complete it. So that's what I say. The mileage means nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't reflect the use.
It's that time and use on pump and motor and the wear and tear.
Other questions?
Yeah, Dan, I have 3 quick things. Is it worth exploring buying one of those engines that was put out of service at 10 years at a used cost, and then kind of overlapping with engine 1, so where, you know what I mean, we have 2 that are now in that 10, 11-year-old time frame. You know, we keep looking at that possibly. That's my one question. If there is, and possibly from a southern market where they're not exposed to snow and ice and sleet and rain activities that we deal with here. And I'll just go through. Second, if we do end up bonding for a new one at 750,000, we should be dancing a jig in some sense, because we almost pulled the trigger last year at 1.4 million, and we pushed back on that. So basically, we're going to want half price over what we would have spent last year. So who's to say next year the price isn't going to be 1.4 million again? Or maybe I don't see it going down to 400,000 like the 2011 truck was, but on the bright side, 750 is a hell of a lot better than 1.4 was last year. So glad that we dodged that bullet by not putting that one forward last year based on the prices this year. So that's a great thing, if that ends up happening. And then lastly, can you possibly provide us, like, get where Gene is coming from on the usage and how much it gets used, and is the value, do we need to replace a truck just because an association who may be funded by the same guys who build fire trucks tells us that we have to replace them? You know what I mean? Like, are we in that sense where Freightliner and all these companies they'll give the money to this association that says, okay, tell everybody in 10 years they got to replace their truck so it drives our business up. But can you tell some of the improvements that would come in this truck comparatively to that would help you as a firefighter? Is what I don't mean the specifics of necessarily the cab and the motor or whatever, but the advances over these past 20 years and what would help our firemen put out fires and save lives?
So the first question, I believe if you look at a community nearby us, they did just that. They went to a southern company, purchased a piece of apparatus, and they've been chasing gremlins since day one. Unfortunately, at 10 years, you're either looking at a New York City fire truck at 10 years is like 30 years ago now, or more. Or you're looking at a truck that they're dying to get down the road at 10 years because of the gremlins they've been chasing for the last 5. And it's fixed, it runs, it's your problem now. And now you're looking at buying a 5 or 10 year truck at 250,000, and then you're still looking at buying another truck to replace that one. I mean, you can certainly do a 5 years, every 5 years and buy a used vehicle. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem like you're at the end of the day saving that much money.
I think Al raised a good point. We used to go to the auction to find out what the auction value was, because if we had to repossess something, that's what we were gonna get. And I was amazed at the interest in municipal equipment, because it was maintained by the municipality. They had a nice staff. The excavating contractors of the world would pay big money or decent money for that, that 10-year-old dump truck, because they knew that they could drive it another 10 years or another 20 years. And so they didn't have to pay the cost of a new one. So the town offloaded an older vehicle that didn't meet the standards, even though it had some life in it. And so maybe serious consideration of a used.
And again, at 10 years, if you're looking at a 10-year truck and you're lucky enough to find one that's available, it's certainly a possibility. We're looking at a 25-year truck, so we want to make sure that what we're replacing isn't going to be a short measure. Do you want to get 3 5-year trucks, 3 7.5-year trucks, whatever it may be? Or are you going to look at replacing one truck once and having it for another 20, 25 years and not worrying about in between? Because I'm sure you don't want us to be back here in 3 years saying we need another truck because this one made it 3 years. We knew it was going to be a possibility, but we were hoping it wasn't. And then 5 years following that, are we going to be back again looking for another truck? I hate to say that, I'm a taxpayer in town as well, and I hate to see the money going out the window like that. But at the same time, you have a known entity going with a new piece of equipment, and especially in the fire service. And again, 10 years, yes, and FPA says 10 years. We stretched it out to actually 25 years. We're putting 2.5 times the life cycle that they're expecting out of it.
Which speaks volume to the credit to you and your crew for making that last that long.
And volunteer services are just that. Why are we looking at these standards that are designed for the big cities when there's no way a community can go and buy a $1 million truck every 10 years and straight face it to anybody? 25 years, I think you're realistic in saying that it's time to upgrade and match it.
My thought process was if we could get a used one for 250,000 that would last 10 years, that we didn't have to bond at this time, that in 10 years we'd be in a much better position to bond you for a brand new one at that time. That will last be a 25-year truck at that point. But I totally trust your opinion and valuation. I mean, there's things that were running through my head when I was.
And again, I only have the one example to follow. But the community did purchase one that they thought was a very good truck, and it was a very good deal, and it worked well. They traveled out of state, purchased the truck, brought it home, ran it for a short period, and then started chasing gremlins in the truck. I don't think they ever completely fixed it until they actually had it completely rewired, redone, 100%, so, I don't know if that was financially worth it or not. I don't know what their bottom line was for the whole truck, but I don't believe it was, at the end of the day, a worthwhile investment for what they ended up deciding.
So the other part too is just in terms of trucks, right now we have a 2002, a 2011, and the tanker is a,
So you have a 2002 engine, which is our extrication engine, which is the one we're looking at replacing. That will move to a frontline pumper for structure fires. You have a 2007, which is our tanker. That, I don't anticipate coming back to you for several years and even talking about that one. Tankers are a slightly different breed where they have one function, carrying water, and that's it. Body maintenance and stuff like that are much easier on a tanker. It's much easier to take care of that. So again, I don't anticipate that one coming till well into 25 to 30-year life cycle with everything working out right. The next one is the 2011 engine. That is our newest actual engine. That's our structural attack engine. And that will be moving down to our extrication engine. Extrication, we look to get the equipment to the scene, run the pumps, basic stuff, but it's not a life safety issue where you have firefighters or victims inside residence or inside a building. So we want to put the newest, biggest, and best at frontline, which is structural. So the new truck will move into structural, and that will move down to a secondary role, extrication. And then our final truck is a 2018 wildland fire truck. That's our F550 smaller truck. And again, that was the same way as the tanker. I certainly don't anticipate having to replace that one in the very near future. I believe our 1988 squad truck that was kind of the replacement with this one was just gotten rid of 2015, 2016. So we certainly got our 35 years of service on it, no problem. So
if you look at our capital plan, we're actually planning on replacing the 2011 before the 2007 tanker. So I wanted to mention the years of the truck. One of my concerns, if we were to get a used truck, we're pushing it, even if it's 10 years, now we're gonna have two engines that need to replace at the same time. I would like to space out our trucks more so they weren't so close together. Running into it with Public Works too. It's like we got new trucks, but we got them back to back. So when it comes to a replacement schedule, trying to spread them out so that they're not so close together. So if the new engine is approved next town meeting, we'd be getting it in 27 and 5. Well, that put us, we're getting closer to that next engine. So if we got a used truck and it lasts 5 to 10 years, we're going to have two engines that are very close together in replacement. Also the concern, if we're paying $250,000 for a 5 to 10 year, and we're getting 5 years, to get 25 years, we're doing it 5 times. So it's not really safe.
The annual cost is higher.
Well, because we're replacing it more too.
Yeah.
So, if it's something that we're getting, the fire department is doing a great job maintaining it, keeping it in working order, and can, with a new vehicle, we should be knowing what we're getting and being able to maintain it and keep it in to that lifespan. And like I said, I get concerned, the more we push this one, the more then we're going to want to push the other one. Hopefully everything continues going good with both trucks. But you never know what happens.
I was talking to two guys yesterday who live in Pownell. And it sounds like they are very, very similar town, rural, no business to speak of, not a lot of retail, manufacturing and that. Do you know what they have for equipment?
I was speaking with one of my coworkers the other day, and I believe they have a similar complement to what we have. I'm not sure if they're one engine shy of what we have, or if they have the same five, essentially 2 engines, a tanker and a wildland fire truck.
And the same vintage?
They are, I honestly don't know the years on their truck, but I am sure they're older. I'm sure they're older.
Older. Okay. This is the time when you don't want to be on the finance committee.
So I just wanted, and I guess, I mean. If the budget passes and we have a full-time fire chief, you know, I'm hopeful that we might be able to find some grants to help offset the cost. of the truck. Cause
Is that possible?
they would have, you know, right now with what we have, it's volunteers. Taking time to do things for us. So. I don't know what there is out there, but I think there are some smaller grants, or maybe there's some other things that we can do to help off on cost, but part of it is having. Someone having the time. To put into it to look. And then to put together the applications. I think right now, we have a staff that works very well together and helping pitch in to do things in different places. Oh,
Does it have to be paid for up front in full? Like if it's gonna take 18 months to get, or
So I don't believe that, like our last one, the cabin chassis was available, the cabin chassis was purchased. Once the cabin chassis was acquired, they went into production with the truck. Once the truck met certain benchmarks, there were certain funds that were made available at that point. And then upon final inspection, final delivery, then the total amount of it.
I think we need the full amount approved, but if we could lower that amount, so the other thing I.
Well, my thought was, can we put more from the budget into reserve, so we're not bonding the full 750,000 when we have to write the final check? Maybe if we put 100, you know what I mean, if we're only, if we can put a chunk of it down by. You know, we're already putting the money in for the school, but if we could find a way to put more money into fire reserves. In order for that, we have to pay that when it's done. Maybe we're bonding less than the 750,000 even by that point. But I didn't know if does the bond have to be approved in full ahead of time? Or just the approval to spend up to?
I need the approval for the bond, so I don't think, I mean, I don't know what the billing looks like. But if the town approves up to a certain amount, can I take it in 2 bonds if I know it's gonna be 2 separated payments? Possibly, but I was also looking at a loan through rural development, because they have low interest loans for municipalities. So that would be an option. That also, I believe, with that process, it's a more involved process to get a loan through them, but you get a better rate.
Yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, so it's something I think I looked into last year. So if it's, you know. While I understand what our debt service looks like. You know, doing things like going for the low interest loan and seeing what other opportunities there might be. I mean, we have been putting money away to go towards the 2 other trucks, so that in hopes that we're only having to bond half the amount. Can that go to this truck? Can we put extra money away? If people are willing to, of course. We can take a harder look at the end of the year at the fire and what goes to the reserve, and maybe more goes to the reserve with that in mind of trying to make up that difference, so that, I mean, whatever we can do to get the loaned amount down would be, I think, beneficial. It's just a matter of, you know, maybe taking several different steps. Small steps will help close the gap a little.
Good with the chief here. Question.
I'm the only one that's surprised at looking at the proposition of borrowing $750,000.
The rest of us looked at it last year.
The year before.
Every year. You weren't on the committee for that,
I know, I know.
you had a bigger number than we're looking at now. We were looking at a million.
So it was tabled last year?
It just wasn't proposed for essentially.
Well, we wanted more so the first year we needed more information on so it took time to get volunteers together to put together a spec for a truck and what they're looking for to bid it up to get prices on it. So last year they weren't. So the first year didn't have it. Last year we had it, but stuff was very high still in the holdover, and you see what we're looking at for debt service. We're also looking at the timeline, like it's a 22, our goal is to have the next truck in 27, right? So we have that time. That's why I'm bringing it up again this year, because I don't want it to be a surprise next year when I'm asking for it to go on the town meeting warrant next year, because if it's approved in 25, we'll have a truck for 27 because it's that. So it's a big purchase. It's a process. So it's, taking the time and doing the due diligence to get us there.
So I think in the due diligence, knowing what the indebtedness of Pownell is, knowing what the years of their fleet of fire equipment is, and then maybe another town similar to ours, like Bowden, to see where we're at in comparison to our peers. Because I know I did that, but I didn't do Pownell. And I found out that we were 10 times more indebted than any of our neighbors, 10 times or more. So to add another 750,000, I will come to the town meeting and I will scream. Because I don't want to pay for it. Now, without knowing where we stand compared to other towns.
And then we're having this current, so we have another year to see what we can do to get that amount down and what other options.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but this is you have the fire chief here and he can answer the technical questions that you have for the department and the equipment.
And the town leadership has done a great job with the ambulance costs. That's great. That's a way to go. Having a full-time fire chief, way to go. I think that's two big wins. And adding the fire truck onto it is not a win. It's a big pill to swallow. So it's just my opinion. Because I think the world of the fire chief.
So we're not talking about, what you're talking about is for a year from now, not for this year. Do you know that?
I'd offer to help with getting the
Over the next,
word that you use, the due diligence. I'd help you with that.
excellent.
Okay.
Don't warn
If I could speak, it seems to me that we have a year to work this out. And I think as long as we remember that this committee and the town itself is trying to reduce our dependence on debt. And so, and this looks like a big stumbling block in our way, at 750,000. So if we can use this year to investigate alternatives, as a number of them has been brought up in this meeting, and see if there's a way that we can at least kick the can down the road so that we can get better control over the debt that we already have, which is, as we're seeing, beginning to strangle us. and get that down and under control, I think we'll all feel a lot better about it. And let me take my hand down. But anyway, I've sat here thinking about this, and I think that we do need to keep in mind that our financial goal is to reduce our dependence on borrowing, and this looks like a big borrow to me. So if we can avoid it, or if we can push it further out when we could maybe handle it better, I think that's what we should be looking at.
So I personally have stated as a select board member, my primary goal is to avoid bonding at all costs. I have made that loud and clear. That being said, we know there are some expenditures in our life, in a community, that we are gonna have to take out a loan for. We're not gonna be able to save up enough money through tax revenues or reserve revenues in order to pay cash money up front for some of these new expenditures, whether they be public works vehicles that need to be replaced, or fire trucks that need to be replaced, or buildings that need to be replaced, right? We're gonna have stuff that, it's inevitable, there's gonna have to be stuff that we're gonna need to take loans out for. We knew last year at a select board, when we made the effort to put $360,000 in reserves to pay for our preventative maintenance road work up front. We knew that this fire truck was coming down the lane, and I grilled Chief Frizzle immensely about it last year. I was cynical about the Federation and their expiration dates. Anytime an association puts an expiration date on something, I get cynical. I want to know where that's coming from. That being said, he presented us with a quote for a $1.4 million vehicle. And we kicked the can down the road. And we won the kick the can down the road lottery, in my mind, because the same vehicle is coming back being quoted at $750,000 this year. Now, as much as I'd love to kick that can down the road again another year, I think we're pushing our proverbial luck, and who's to say our quote doesn't come back next year at $1.2 million or $950,000 even. So I'm saying if we know we're in a need. I'm not going to question Chief Frizzle's commitment and judgment about the quality of his equipment or the need of his equipment for him and his men and our community members. I'm in no position to do that whatsoever. So, frankly, if we don't jump on this price while we have the opportunity, it doesn't seem like we're being very smart, because the future, the price isn't going to go down again. Like we've hit. Yes, it was a crazy price last year at $1.4 million because of everything that had gone on in the supply chain. And thankfully, we were frugal enough, stubborn enough, or whatever, that we didn't pull that trigger last year. And we got lucky. And that's the way I think we should see this, is that we just saved our town $750,000 in bonding by kicking it down the road 1 year. I think we're just pushing our luck far too much if we try to kick that can down the road another year, and that quote is going to come back higher than it is. And I don't want to bond. I don't, but there's some things we just have to pay for. We have to take the loan.
So you would propose to do it. If we get the approval from town meeting this year, doesn't mean we have to do it the next day. We can still, and we can take 6 months and do some additional.
If we can move reserve funds around.
Once we have the approval, we can start moving.
And there's nothing that says we have to spend it all. Like if we get approved up to bond, if we can move reserve monies around and be able to put a $175,000 down payment, from revenues on the truck, and then only, have to bond 525,000 of it. I mean, even that's a better way to approach it. But I mean, I don't think we're going to get a better offer at this point, and I don't know. I mean, that's just where I come out. Sorry, I don't mean to take up your meeting, but
I was just thinking of something I worked with a fella many, many years ago. And he did not believe in going into debt. So for 30 years, he paid rent on an apartment while he saved a little bit on his paycheck. And after 30 years, he paid cash for his house. I don't think that was the right approach to things.
And I made my living making loans to businesses and individuals. So I understand the ability to borrow money allows for a better lifestyle for the town or for you and I or Al. We gotta have a mortgage, you gotta have a car loan. Unfortunately, these days, you gotta have a couple of credit card debts as well. So, I know that we are heavily indebted compared to our neighbors. And it seems like the floodgates were open when the finance committee 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was, we all put our hands up and said, we're gonna borrow $1.4 million to do the highway department. It seems like the floodgates is open. I had some hard problems. I got off the meeting, off the committee. Now I'm back on, and we're dealing with that. I'm trying to deal with why we're 10 times more indebted than our neighbors. Adding to that debt, no matter the people are going to lend the money because they got the fire truck as collateral, but you have to pay the payments. And our ability to make payments is going to result in the taxpayers paying more money every year. Just let me finish. I think there's been a lot of other stuff that's going to raise the budget this year that are not going to cause people in the fire department to go in harm's way. And I also went in harm's way in Vietnam many years ago because I felt it was right, because all of my forebears went in the service of the country. So I know about going into harm's way, and I take that seriously. I honestly think that we need to kick the can down the road another year to get the due diligence to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the taxpayers. Because I get it that we got to borrow money, but it's a question of how much and what we do with it. And go ahead.
So the question,
Well, first of all, I thank you very much for your service, first off and foremost. I also am a veteran. I served on nuclear submarines, in the United States Navy, so I also put myself in harm's way by living on a nuclear reactor, 2,000 people on the surface of the water. So that being said, thank you for your service. I appreciate that. My question is, if we keep kicking down the can, I don't disagree. I wholeheartedly agree with you with our debt service number is too high. I've been on page, I am agreeing with you 100% on that. But the only way to not add to that and to still survive would then to be add $750,000 in reserves this year to the fire department's budget, and we collect it in tax revenues next year, and we pay cash for that. So no, we're not gonna add to our debt service. We're gonna get the fire chief what he wants at the best deal. Do you want to present that to the public, that we're gonna add $750,000 in budget costs because we don't wanna take out a loan on something, we wanna pay cash for it. So we're gonna get $750,000 from everybody in town in 1 year, so we can write a check and pay cash for that fire truck. Because that's the only alternative to not bonding. I mean, we can't get out of the fact we need a new fire truck. It doesn't matter whether we do any due diligence in the next year or not. The fact of the matter is, we're still gonna need a new truck. So do we, and again, By kicking it down the road, we're only gonna, I only see how we increase the cost. I think we should just feel fortunate we got lucky that we didn't pull the trigger last year.
I think one of the options that we, maybe Nicole brought up is asking the town to authorize and seeing if they accept. But with the understanding that it need not be spent this year, it could be spent next year, and we would have whatever length of time shows up, 6 months, to do some more thinking about it. The money that we know we're going to need has been authorized, and the question becomes, when do we spend it? When do we incur the debt? Not, which is almost the same as kicking it down the road. Is when does the debt get incurred? It gets incurred when we spend the money. So is that sort of, does that option solve everybody's concerns?
George, I'm being honest. I looked at what the finance committee looked at last year, like 1.4 million to fix up the town hall. That to me is crazy. It's an old church. I get the historical value. It's an old church. You can't spend 1.4 million on that. When I came in here today, I had no idea that we were going to talk about buying a $750,000 car. No idea. There was no mention of it in any of the stuff from last year. I didn't know that the finance committee had looked at it last year. So
It's on your estimated debt service with all the other ones that we're trying to kick.
look at the paper you got there.
Yeah.
Look at the stack of paper you got underneath there. That's a lot to digest. And I guess I didn't digest it enough. So maybe I'll seek a pay raise. You know what I'm saying? To me, there are people who think that we ought to spend $1.4 million on that, and then probably more people are going to spend more money on other projects. But we only have the ability to pay for so much, and I'm worried about our bonding sources. Looking at the same financial information that I see, our balance sheet and our income statement, and say, well, maybe we don't want to lend Bodenham $750,000 because they can't afford it. Who's going to have to keep raising taxes, and people who are on a fixed income are going to have to move out of town and sell their house, get some new blood in.
Yeah, I think I'm confused here. Are we talking about putting this bond at the next town meeting or a year from now?
So our plan was a year from now,
That's what I thought.
so that we could have the truck for
Discussion.
27. I think the point one of our select board members is making is the price isn't going down, so if we're gonna do it a year from now, if we got approval this year, we might be able to capitalize on the prices that we're getting now. I think to the point, there's still some work to be done. So if it was approved, it doesn't mean we have to take it right away. There might be, more time involved. Looking at the rural development loan, looking at grants, seeing maybe what we can do with reserves or other things to help offset it, because I agree. I would like to minimize our debt service. I think we've all talked about that, but that estimated colored sheet you have are the ones that aren't accounted for in. So, we have the capital improvement plan that shows like, we put this money away, this is all we're gonna have to borrow. There's big purchases we're not putting enough away for, or they're coming too soon that we're not able to save for. And those are the ones that you're seeing on that estimated debt service. I guess I see, I mean, whether we get approval this year or next, there's still time and work that needs to be done. And there are still other things that we can look into to, so that we don't have to borrow as much.
Well said.
So
So-
I did not want us to not talk about the fire truck issue.
You're suggesting that we ought to on the shell warrant for. When is it, the 1st of June or meeting up? That there's going to be an article for a $750,000 bond for a fire engine. Am I understanding this correctly?
I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts. I was thinking of it next year.
It's all my fault.
I'm more comfortable putting it off another year, I think. And with all due respect, I think we gotta,
If we come back and the bid's the quote's $1 million next year, I'm gonna tell you I told you so.
then I'll.
Fair enough, right?
Yeah, now I'll say, well, you were right, Al.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I got to go on. I think I just, it just seems like we're pushing our luck, that's all.
So I guess it's more. So some of it's, we're talking timing, but then there's the issue of the truck itself. Are there any outstanding, other than obviously the cost, questions for the fire chief in regards to the truck? And then once we're past the truck, then it's more of what works best for timing, and then how are we going to make it happen?
Well,
So once I guess everyone's on board of, yes, we want to try to get a truck by 27, then we can start looking at, this is how we're going to do it, and these are the things that we want to look into in order to make it happen.
Well, I agree with Al. I don't know anything about fire trucks. I defer to the chief on what kind of equipment we need for the type of fire service that we have. You've got to tell us that.
Just what we expect out. I said, we got some parameters. I told them we were $1 million and change last year. We want to be below 750 this year. And that's where they've gone in looking at the truck. They worked with manufacturers. The 2 that we could get to return to us were the 2 that were below 750. So beyond that, trucks are fairly comparable across the board that way.
So it boils down to this year, kick the can down the road another year to try and get a better hold on our debt service.
Will it last?
I can say today, yes, 100%.
Okay,
Tomorrow morning, you ask me and there's a problem with it, I can't tell you. We keep it in good repair. It's not something that's rusting, rotting, or falling apart. It's also 25 years old. I
Yep.
can't tell you what it's gonna do tomorrow.
Yep.
I have both fingers and toes crossed that, everything is gonna work out, because I don't wanna put anybody in that situation where our truck failed because of that, but we're going under the expectation that we've maintained it to this point to keep it in service, so.
and that's my recollection, that your equipment was spotless, it was in great shape and well maintained. And if it's gonna have a nominal resale value this year or next year, then I think it's prudent that the town do the diligence to see what options are there, new, used, useful life, and what's the best, putting money in the reserve as a down payment makes a lot of sense, because that's what we all have to do to buy a house. You gotta have a down payment unless you go to Main State Housing.
So I'll say is everyone is. The goal is to have a replacement for engine 2 for FY for 27. That would be that would cost us less than 750.
It's the goal.
Okay. So I just want to work it backwards. So like if the goal is to have engine 2 replaced for 27. And right now we're looking at 750. We know we don't want that for a debt service. So what other things can we do to try to bring that level down?
By
We can
you,
talk later. So we can talk later about this year or next year, but I think either way, we're gonna have to take some time to, if everyone's on board, no one likes the costs, no one likes the debt service, I think we're all on board there. It's just, if that's the goal, we can start working on that more actively. And we can have the discussion of when we need the approval or should get the approval compared to when we would be spending it. Maybe it does happen into loans and get more of those details together.
What kind of life are you talking about on the loan? If you're talking a 30-year vehicle.
No, I was looking
I'm
at,
not talking about a 30-year loan,
right.
but are you talking 10, 15, 20 years? What are you talking?
I think what we had here, we were looking at a 15-year.
Okay, so you're talking 50,000 a year, basically, plus interest.
80,000.
Yeah.
80,000 a year payment for a 15-year loan.
principal and interest.
That was for 750,
700
700.
with a 7.5% interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
I estimate high because I don't know when things are happening or where things are going.
Yeah,
But I think this is something we could also look at a rural development loan for. We could get a much better rate, Alan.
right.
We could look at the different loan terms in terms of whether we went 15 years or something different. We'd have to look at how the ordering works, when the payments come in. And so we can start looking in more details in that way.
Is there anything coming off the debt service that's gonna be any different? Putting this
No.
on next year, like,
No,
if our goal, you know what I mean, like,
No.
if it's the same number check we're writing for debt service. Then it's not eliminating, it's not changing anything to
No.
put it off a year, except. Just
So-
possibly risking an increased price and delaying the chief getting on the truck.
the only thing that's coming off is an FY 27 is our last payment on our comfort truck of 17,000. The consolidated loan, which is nearly 170,000's last payment, is an FY 31. Once that comes off, it helps substantially. Then the other we did the big road and parking bond. We did that 2 years ago. So that's last payment is in 31 as well. It's 32. So it's really, because that we don't have things coming off, because all the things that would be coming off were consolidated.
Stephen King gave us $50,000 for one for round truck. Is he still doing that?
They still do the Stephen King grant. It's much more competitive because everybody's jumping on board with that. I believe past years there's been other items that were requested through that, not necessarily through us, but certainly is an option to add to the bottom line of that.
So we'd like to find other ways so it's not a $750,000 loan. But we're supportive of the goal of having a replacement truck for 27 for when our truck engine 2 is at 25 years.
And the only way to guarantee that is to put out a bond on the warrant for the 750. And if we get other funds in, we don't have to spend it. But we can't place an order for $750,000 truck without having an approved bond for $750,000.
Or loan, but so that's, but there, like I said, there's the rural development loan, which I looked in before, which has a much better rate.
Procedural, if the town votes it, you go out looking for the financing, are they gonna give you a year and a half guarantee on the rate while the truck gets built?
So when we go for the financing, we get. It's set when we get it, but but if I'm making two payments, do we do two loans? I don't know how it works when you're purchasing, you know. Or you take a full bond and we hold it until the rest of it's due. I haven't gone through the fire truck purchase, but yes, I mean, when we go, whether it's the loan through the rural development or we go out for a bond, when we sign on it is the rate we'll get. So I still haven't taken the loan for the road work that was approved last year. Bids for that road work are due next Tuesday. Once I have bids, I know what we're looking at. The board's gonna look at those bids, decide on what we want for the scope of road work. Then I'll put out for the bond. And then once I put out, they'll submit their rates, the board will pick it, and then we'll sign on we'll do that paperwork. So we won't know what the rate's gonna be at town meeting.
Gotcha.
So at town meeting, we're just giving estimated
Gotcha.
rates and
And I have to
payments.
sign a contract with the builder of the truck to set the price at $750.
To set the price of the truck.
But there is the option of buying a used truck for something significantly less than that as a potentially viable option.
So I guess, so what? You were thinking 10-year-old truck, 250,000 could last 5 to 10 years. So if it lasts, say, 8 years, now we're buying 2-3 trucks, used trucks for what we could have had for a new truck that would last us the same time frame with unknown maintenance, because we don't know what that truck's been through when we're getting it.
I'd like to see that on a spreadsheet.
Okay.
I can help with that.
Great.
Another option might be to put together a municipal bond open to the public. That is doable. You have to have an underwriter. But the thing is, all you need is 750 people putting in $1,000 apiece. That's small. But guaranteed 4% non-taxable income.
It's very attractive
Right,
to the investor.
that's correct.
Can BCDI do something like that?
Do I have some volunteers looking at making something like that?
BCDI is not that large.
They're limited,
do the big balls.
so limited to 25 people on the loan,
Yeah,
so that's not, but the concept,
Concept is the same, correct?
right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
and it is doable. I've seen it done. I'm originally from upstate New York, and there are towns that did do such municipal funding in that way. Have residents of slightly larger communities, maybe 5 to 10,000. And you get people that would buy basically a bond, get the interest, no taxes, fed or state on that interest.
I have to leave. I would like to make one comment on the solid waste recycling budget. I saw that the net to the taxpayers was $126,946, I believe, after revenues.
Interestingly enough, we recycled exactly 126 tons last year. That means net to the taxpayers, recycling alone is gonna cost us $1,000 a ton. Once you figure in staff, the building, the costs. To be a profit center for Casella. So just think about that, $1,000 a ton. Thank you.
So anything else on fire?
Well, Brian's been sitting there a long time.
I fall asleep. Yeah, I think we should let the chief go. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely. I was told Floyd would be out of here in 10 minutes. We lied.
Right up front. Wow. Okay. So I gave you two updated budgets, so typically I don't like. After you review everything, I'll update and give it to you, but, the board approved contracting with MWAC for our solid waste disposal, municipal solid waste disposal. So that reduced the cost of the solid waste budget.
Was MWAC for in Auburn?
Yes. So I believe we were just looking, Casella gave us a proposal of $123 a ton for municipal solid waste. Main Waste Energy gave us a cost of $91 a ton.
How many did we do? 120, I'll say 123,000.
We did 250,000 pounds of recycling last year. 250,000 pounds.
Okay, so
That was recycling though, we're talking about trash
And
now.
trash, we did 260.
Trash was 253 tons.
okay. So that difference is and you said it was 123 from Casella?
It was an $8,000 savings.
So instead of the budget going up,
Sure.
it's going down.
123 versus 91. That's huge.
Yep.
Yeah. And we're talking $32 a ton.
And I think this year we're paying 107
Right now,
or 104.
115. Until June,
Did it used to be 107?
it used to be 89. Years ago.
So the overall with that change, it brings the cost of the department to 217,946. We have an estimated revenue of 99,000, which brings the cost to the taxpayer to 119,000.
Certainly better. I always get confused when I look at these. Now, the single stream contract, that's what we're paying Casella for the silver bullets or for now the compactor.
Yes,
Okay. And that's down 19,000 because of the compactor.
correct.
Okay. General disposal. What falls in that?
Bulky waste.
That's bulky waste. Now, the curbside pickup, that's Richard Cooler,
Yes.
and the trash disposal, that's for what?
So-
Picks up and does.
In hauls it for us, yep. And so we pay him per tag, but then we also pay, so right now we're paying Casella for the disposal. Next year we'll be paying Main Waste Energy.
Okay, so right now Richard's hauling to Casella's facility in West Bath.
Correct.
Okay. That answers my question.
What would the cost and expenses and potential revenue be if the solid waste and recycling department had a transfer license?
So I think we'd expect to take in more general disposal
Yes.
and So we'd receive the money of taking that in, but we'd also have the increased cost of disposing it. That's the big, so we'd be able to take what we currently take biannually on the 2 cleanup days, we'd be able to take any time.
So what would the net be to the town? Would it be positive or negative? The net revenue or net
I
cost?
think, like, so whatever we take in for revenue should offset the cost of it, because folks, like, if you're bringing in a mattress, you're paying for the disposal of that mattress, you're paying us, but then we're paying for its ultimate.
At the same rate? Or is there a spread?
So we pay per,
We charge per item, so say it's a twin mattress, it's gonna be $5. If it's a king size mattress, it's gonna be $15. That generates the revenue to pay for the disposal.
And what does the disposal cost?
Right now, it's $112 a ton.
So.
Okay, so how much does that mattress weigh?
Yeah, well, again, it depends on construction. We don't have scales, so we have to go by size
so
and.
people pay us by item, but then it goes in the trailer,
Yeah, I
we
can tell
bring it
you,
down there, and then we pay on the weight.
I can tell you, we have never come in short on revenue for disposal.
We've always covered costs, in other words.
Exactly. And what we have brought in has always covered the cost of disposal.
But you don't have a scale to weigh the stuff.
Correct.
Would we be better off to have a scale?
Probably not.
Wouldn't be worth the expense.
Yeah, they're expensive, and then you're looking at the time to weigh each item coming in, and
And then they have to be maintained,
right, they have, yeah,
That's very.
every year they have to be certified, and
Yep,
yeah,
we did that in Windsor, and it was very expensive.
The estimated revenue of 99,000, that's track tags. Plus what we sell the cardboard for.
cardboard, metal,
And what we sell the metal that goes to Grimmel.
yes.
You know, off the top of your head, do you have a breakdown between those three?
Not on me, but I can tell you metal is paying $150 a ton right now.
So for solid waste revenue,
Cardboard is paying 75 a ton right now.
How was the trend then on those up or down?
It's continuing to grow. It's getting better every day, or has for the past 6 months anyways.
so for general disposal, we're estimating 2,500, trash tags estimating 90,000, and recyclable material sales 6,500 for the 99,000.
So the 6,500 is cardboard and metal.
No, it's
That doesn't seem like a lot. Not with those prices going up.
so if you look at the budget,
What was that 6,500 estimated? And using what numbers?
December. I think I was using December's numbers.
Okay, you've grown since then.
Yeah.
so
First week of
general,
every month I get an updated.
general disposal for revenue. So our collection days are in October and April. So I think I look at not just this year, but I look at last year's budget, and then if things seem off, I'll look at the year before just to try to get an idea of what we have. So we took it, so that was nearly $1,000 in October for general disposal. Solid waste user fees, to date, we've brought in almost 64,000. Recycling income, here we are. So July was 900, August 1,000, September 600, October 500, November 1,500. January 600, February 300. I'm obviously rounding to the closest hundred. But I just say, so I think it depends on when we haul cardboard. Also when the metal dumpster is full. So right now,
Numbers back.
so our total that we brought in for revenues so far this year is 5,400 for recycling income.
So. That's about 700 a month average. Just shy.
Yeah, so we're July, August, September, October, November,
And-
January, February,
Yeah, that's 8 months.
8 months.
And that, divide that 5,400, 7 times
Mhm.
8 is 56, so.
Yep.
We're close to 700 a month. That should get us 8,000 anyway. 7 times 12 is 8,400. It'd be 8,400.
So right now, without March, so what do we have? We have 4 months left. We have March,
March,
April, May, June.
right,
So if we added another
2,800.
2,800, we'll be right at 8.
Yeah.
For this year.
But. Keep two.
Next week, I'm shipping more cardboard. I'm sitting on 12 tons right now,
Okay,
And then last year,
for $900.
okay.
so last year we brought in just under 7,000. And the year before, we brought in 13,000,
Cardboard prices were,
very high then.
about 160 a ton. A couple years ago.
So I'm estimating 65, which is just below what we received last year.
But it's growing,
But it also, it goes up and down often. It's part of the.
but.
Yep.
From what Brian has said.
Yep.
Prices are up. And we could probably easily add another 1,500. It's not a big thing, but. It just is a bit difference in revenue.
Right, but I think we can.
I don't think that's.
It's just what we're doing this year and then what happens next year.
Sure.
I'd say the recycling market changes a lot. So it might be up right now. It might have been trending up. When did it start trending, going up?
Well, it's been trending for 3 years.
And, okay, so why is
According
it
to,
almost 13,000 to the 7,000?
according to BNL's documents, it's been trending on the upward scale for 3 years. I haven't seen, that was the documents that the engineers gave us, because they deal in solid waste all the time.
We seem to be holding, because if you look at. You know, we tend to, well, we went from 11,000 to 6,000 to 13. To 7. This year, it looks like we're gonna be close to the 7, 8.
I think we'll be higher than that. I just shipped metal 2 days ago. Or past couple days, I just shipped metal, so that'll be another
How many tons?
probably $700 right there.
Close to 900 in cardboard. So that's 1,600, so it's coming. This month.
Yep.
And I'm having 54 already, so 7. With 3 more months to go. So. It's a question of, will this continue? Do you think this trend is going to continue quantity wise? I mean, how's the quantity been? Has it been fairly consistent?
Cardboard's crazy. Everybody's bringing in cardboard, and not just 1 or 2 pieces, they're bringing it in by the carload and the truckloads. And
So everybody getting stuff mail on it.
yeah,
Chewy boxes.
yeah. And metal, now that it's springtime, people are cleaning up their yards, and we're getting a lot of metal in now.
Yeah.
Where last month it was a little slow, but it's picking up.
January, February, probably gonna be slow anyway, nobody's doing much.
Right.
Yeah, who wants to go on that time of year?
Go on ball stuff to the dog. Where does that cardboard go to? Where do you sell it?
We haul it to the sorting facility in Scarborough.
What is your biggest problem with your operation right now?
Licensing.
Licensing.
If I had a transfer station license, I could offer more services to the residents.
And bring in more revenue.
Absolutely.
Are we attacking this?
We're working it. We're working it.
So it's just something we need B and L to get stuff together for.
No,
Work day or.
no, we're done. We're done with all that. It's just a matter of applying for a license.
So we'll be talking to the select board about applying for a license again at their next meeting. We've looked at the materials, putting together what it's gonna cost for us to, what upgrades we're gonna have to bring to the facility to be able to get our license. Where, you know, and when we apply, we need to show where we're putting stuff. So we're putting that together for the select board's next meeting. So we can possibly move forward there. So basically bulky waste would be anytime, and then we'd be able to take brush and
Brush, freon, tires, household hazardous waste.
so I think,
We take paint now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that our staff gets is they're helping the residents that are coming, and they're hearing from the residents of, when am I gonna be able to do this? Why can't I do this anymore? Is this gonna happen? So I think that's really where some of this is, you know, it's folks miss having those services. So, you know, putting together the materials and, you know, possibly applying for our license. So there is expenses to that. So Brian and I are working on putting that together with the board.
Yeah, that's storage for it, right? Isn't that biggie?
Well, there is an area in which we could store materials. We won't be able to store a lot, so it's gonna have to be, you know, upkept on a regular basis.
So.
But there is an area in which we can store materials.
So after we get this license,
Mhm.
are there any physical changes? Is this where we need the second entrance into the facility?
Yeah, there has to be a second entrance, there has to be a gate.
It has to be a gated entrance.
Okay,
So-
and Toby's gonna do this on his public works budget?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
so we're looking at what the cost would be for Public Works to do that work.
It'd be your culvert, gate and license for the 5,000.
You're pretty close to it, yeah.
And then what would be the license for the transfer station itself?
That's included in that 5,000. It's $1,800 for DEP's licensing fee
For both, for the.
for transfer station license.
Isn't there a license for the road access?
Oh, that's just a DOT entrance permit.
Oh, okay.
So permitting's probably, you know, 2,000, and then the culvert, the gate was what?
You know, the gate's $250 from Tractor Supply, no less. I mean, and they have them in stock, so.
And then, you know, the material and Public Works doing the work. So we're putting together that package so we can, you know, but I'm sure the licensing prices is probably gonna take 6 months with the state, so.
Okay, let me attack it a different way here. If this is gonna cost $5,000, where in the budget is this $5,000?
So if we have there is money in the recycling reserve that could be used to move this forward. One of our select boards suggested that maybe we ask town meeting authorization for the money to move it forward. But there is money in the solid waste reserve.
Okay, so the answer to the question is in the solid waste reserve, right?
It's not in the operating budget.
So we already have the money. Right, okay, thank you.
It's just the process that needs to be approved.
That's good.
I've probably taken my allotted time share, but I think the town has shown the willingness and want to recycle. And we got a nice facility. And for $5,000, we got the ability to make more money on the income side. So and obviously we have one enemy on the select board, or at least someone who has concerns about the cost of recycling, but if the select board could get a projection that said, hey, if we spend 5,000, we're gonna take in more stuff that we'll get $5 and $15 for, and that will surpass the cost of doing this, then it's a win for the town. We'll make more money than it cost us to get the license. Because the will of the taxpayers is they want to recycle. And from a global point of view, it makes all the sense in the world to recycle.
So I think to your, and there's some other, the solid waste committee's looking at some other things as well. So, you know, solid waste has been, and recycling has changed over the years, and I think it's still evolving and but this is the budget we're proposing for next year. And we'll keep.
Is there any market at all for plastics?
Yeah, there's a market. It fluctuates just like everything else.
Yeah.
But I think like in 2027, there's gonna be an additional revenue line. When EPR is online. And that's where the manufacturers have to help support the funding of recycling.
Right.
And the first checks to be dealt out for that will be in 2027.
Huh.
Okay.
So I haven't, I need to make some phone calls, but I was heard this morning that I have to be a transfer station in order to be a part of that program. I haven't seen that yet, but that's what I was told this morning. So that's something I gotta look into.
That's the only way we get any funding.
Right.
Have they made the rules for it yet, or is that just talk about how the rules might come out?
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
So I think there's legislation at the state and federal levels involving recycling too, you know, the push for more recycling. So I think we're gonna see more things coming, and we just like to be in a better position to handle those. So we don't have the answers, but we're working our way there.
So we talked about 5,000 for Culver Gate and license. There's no structure there.
Correct.
Can you get by without structure?
yes. I don't know if you've been over to Richmond's, but they have a 2-car garage that they operate out of. And they're operating a transfer station.
What about getting a freight container?
Oh yeah, shipping containers are on my list of things,
Yeah, that's a bigger than a 2-car garage.
right? Yeah, so there's things that, you know, like tires, and you don't want them to fill with water because you're gonna, you know, get mosquitoes and stuff like that, but I could store 100 tires in a 10 by 10 area, you know, so it don't take a lot of space. It just,
Right,
they need to be out of the elements.
but the storage containers are pretty cheap at that.
They are, you know, 40 foot's about $3,200.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm aware, I've been,
Yeah, she's been fluctuating.
I said, one step at a time.
I'm not sure which year, but in Richmond, there was like this 30-foot high mound of furniture out all winter in frozen solid and rained 3 times as much as it did when they brought it in.
Right,
That having shelter makes a big difference.
it does.
So to that point, I think, you know, ideally in the future, someday when we get past this, you know, these magic dates that we have here, you know, we have like you know, could we invest money to make improvements? Do a three-sided structure
With a-
and other, with the roof? You know, right, do we have bigger areas? Do we get containers? So I think there's possibilities. I think that we can start operating with what we have. And, you know, delay debt service. And wait till, you know, when, in the future, when there's more, you know, when the debt service is better.
Little hold your breath on that. I mean. The water in the, I mean, if you're thinking temperature in there, how do you not lose money? When it gets wet, the $5 for the mattress might not cover. Toilet weighs 500 pounds.
Right, so we have tarps, and I currently have one Converse. I have one sitting there right now, though. And my plan is, once we get a truckload, we take it, we don't hold it. We fill
The
it,
big area.
yeah, we get rid of it. So basically, once we get, you know, maybe 10 yards of material, we go from the truck and then it just goes in.
Question, Brian, so we're talking about the $5,000, which gives us the gate and the license and allows us to provide additional services to the community. Can you do this with your present staff, or do you see the need to
Yes.
increase hours?
We can do it with our present staff and we don't have to extend our hours or anything.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget? So on the expense budget,
Just procedurally, would you expect that there would be a line for Brian's department and the separate line of $5,000 for the license? Would it all be tied as there may be people who want to not have a transfer station. And if there were two separate items, it wouldn't jeopardize the bigger picture. Because there was it'd be hard if it's $5,000. It's going to be hard to somebody to come up with a great reason not to do this.
so like I said, so there's money in the reserve, the board could approve it for us to apply and move forward.
That would be its own item. That's-
No, it doesn't have to go to town meeting. Now, they could choose to put it to town meeting and then, yes, it'd be because it'd be getting authorization to expend the money from the reserve, but that isn't required.
I think Alan wants to vote, right?
We'll have to talk about it at the next,
Sure.
at the next select board meeting, so.
Reading the minutes of the past ones that I sort of mentioned. Just so if the vote was only for 5,000, it's less confrontational than if it's for 150,000 because it's added to the budget you have.
I'm with George. I think I hear him saying that there should be the 5,000 for the transfer license.
So you wanna add the 5,000 to the budget?
No, have it separate.
All right, well, that's, right now it is separate.
All right.
It's not in this budget.
And that's your question, where in the budget is it?
Yes, it is not in the budget. We have it in the reserve currently.
The answer to the question is, it's not in the budget, the intention is for the select board to take it from the reserve.
So how do we endorse that?
We don't need to,
We don't need to.
it's not, it's, the money is already there.
If the
So
board decides to put it to town meeting, it's something that could come back to you, to the committee, because it would be a funding item on the warrant.
So minor though. Agreed. So, meeting warrant said, are we prepared to accept the solid waste and recycling budget as amended? To utilize the MWAC proposal? So, thank you, Jeff. Second. Second. All in favor?
I,
Aye. 6-0.
Oh, so on the revenue side, did you want to make any changes to the estimated revenue? I heard that there was a,
It's,
yeah,
I mean, we could, but it's relatively minor at this point.
Is this estimated revenue for everything?
No, not probably, recycling, sales, the sales of cardboard and metal.
because right now I have estimated 6,500. Do we want to increase that to the 8,000?
We can, it's always good to add things like that, even if they're small, they add up.
They do. If we don't make it, then it's underfunded, and so I like it when my revenues come higher than expected.
Same, I think it's still.
You don't like being disappointed when the revenues don't make it.
I would agree with you. I think it's gonna go up even higher.
Yeah. It just, I've been looking at trends, I mean, I do a lot of metal, metal was silver and gold, and trends are there.
I mean,
But it just seems like we keep adding expenses and expenses and expenses. If there's a way we can recoup just a little bit more revenue, it would be in favor of that.
Put it up to 8.
everyone in favor of moving that one to 8,000?
Yes.
All right. Well, Black Pen is making that change.
So if we're not gonna get the license in this fiscal year, probably.
I'm assuming it's a 6-month process.
I've never applied for a license, so I don't know how long the process.
I will need to have more information, an update for you at our next meeting.
What
So
are,
let me just add,
Great.
what are you planning to put in the second entrance?
Well, I'm gonna give the EP a call, see if they can do a site visit.
Yeah.
And then I'll know more then.
so at the next meeting, I'll give you an update as to.
Yeah, I can find out how long the process takes once I turn in the application. I can probably get that answer
But I'm
tomorrow.
pretty sure there's probably a noticing requirement and we need to look.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
There we go.
If they had that,
There's more.
I know there has to be 500 feet from the nearest, more than 500 back in the nearest building, but that's all done in your study. That's where they have the actual footage. That's it. So
Yeah.
that may save you a couple of months right there.
Plenty of room. Right.
So anything else on solid waste?
They're a long 10 minutes, Brian.
I was told mine would be 15 minutes.
Brian, we appreciate what you guys do over there.
We're having fun.
Thank you.
So I know we're past 5. We do have another meeting, but if you'd all be willing to. So we still haven't talked about facilities maintenance, harbor master, administration. The contingency and organizational requests, which I definitely wanted to just brief on because I wanted to know whether I should invite people to the next meeting. And at the last meeting, you did not make decisions on general services and debt service, recreation and community services, or public works, and we still have to talk about capital reserves. So would people be willing to stay another half an hour
And
tonight?
we do have the 28th
We
Right.
do,
on the calendar. There's also April 4th.
there is.
So
But I know this, we're doing, so I talked, so the select board So our budget workshop with the select board is April 9th. Their meeting is gonna be busy, so we're gonna do a budget workshop at 5 o'clock. And then they'll do a short recess before they go into their regular business. So instead of 6:30 or 5 o'clock on April 9th.
Okay.
So I'm just feeling we still have a lot to do. Unless I ate lunch today, so I can go for another half an hour, but if anyone else didn't, then you should. So. So the one thing we do need to talk about before is just so we do have to still. We have the Spectrum Generations, Life Flight, and Mary Paul proposals and information. My question that I do need answered from you is, would you like to have someone from that organization present at your next meeting to answer questions?
Yes. I thought we approved Life Flight already. We approved Life Flight and we approved Maine Public. Library.
Yeah.
Yes.
You approved Kennebec Behavioral Health. I don't believe you approved Life Flight because it was a big package and we didn't talk about it last time.
I
But
think
you
we
talked
did.
about Kennebec Behavioral Health.
You did that.
My flight's only a 4-page. Packet, I think.
Yeah, Spectrum is the big one.
Getting them.
Yeah, what we have left is Spectrum and the library request.
You did.
Well, very short, this is a.
Yeah.
The library collection.
Right. I think it's just those two.
So I have that so at your February 15th meeting, you approved Kennebec Behavioral Health.
That's.
I don't believe you need, because you had just gotten the packet. And then I have on the February 1st, you approved Maine Public and Bodenham Public Library. On the 15th, you approved Kennebec Health. And you asked Life Flight and Spectrum for items C, D, E, H, and J, which you have now from both of them. But I don't think we ended up talking about them at our last meeting, which was the 29th. I just gave you the packets of information.
All we were looking for is basically backup data. And not justification for the numbers
Yes.
that
I mean, if you're comfortable in approving them and not wait, and you don't want to wait to the next meeting, or you don't want someone present, we can. If you wanted someone at the next meeting to answer questions on any of those proposals, I wanted to have time.
Anybody here to deal with it, I think we can deal with these things.
All right, so are you comfortable with dealing with? Are you comfortable making this, so we have Life Flight?
Yes,
Do we need anyone present?
I don't think so.
Oh.
No.
they provide services here.
Do you want to make that decision tonight or wait till next time?
Let's do it now. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the donation to Life Flight for $761. So,
Second.
okay, Gene. Life Flight. All in favor?
I,
6-0, okay.
And then we had Spectrum.
Okay, now Spectrum, how many trees did we cut down that? Oh, shit.
I measured it. It was a little over a half an inch.
Okay. Questions, concerns?
And I did look to see how much United Way was part of their budget, it was $80,000 or 88,000.
There you go.
So that was your interest.
Yeah, that was down. From the prior year.
Skin points.
I was really impressed by how many services they provide to Bodenham residents. I make a motion that we approve their, what they're asking for.
It's, 1733.
What surprised me was to see,
Okay, who made the motion?
Nina. And Jean, you seconded?
that was their CFO, remind me.
I know. We ready to vote? We are. Okay, all in favor of $1,733 donation to Spectrum? Vote is 6-0. Aye.
Thank you. And then the last one we have is the Bodenham Historical Society. So the $1,000 for the documents that I already had in the budget.
General service.
I did not have in the 5,000 for the utilities.
So that's the issue for us to decide here tonight.
So you can just, yeah, tonight, at the next meeting, would you like to invite anyone to speak to it? I just didn't, if you wanted to have someone, I wanted to have a chance to invite them to a meeting, I thought. You know,
Gene, would you like to have?
I remember when this started. It was supposed to be a temporary fix, because they were gonna go in the wedding business. Run weddings out of there and make a bunch of money.
But yeah,
And
so,
we paid them every year since. Not 5,000 all years, but there was 2,600 and then 5,000 for the remaining year. So it's been like 5 years that we've been paying the utility. So my question is, when does it stop? And is the library paying rent to them? For the space downstairs for the used book thing.
Well, why we did, so, and then you answer the value here for the next one. Maybe ask them directly, Gene.
I mean, I think there's legitimate questions.
Did you see their, the list of the things that they do each month? Did you get that?
No,
It's a substantial.
I don't disagree. I've been to those and it's good. I'm just wondering what the deal is. How long, is this in perpetuity? And is the library helping to pay for the expenses or are they just over there free? And I suppose I could even live with that because the library is providing good services to the town. And maybe
basically, that would be a use of the town. Because the library is part of the town.
yeah,
That would be the town using.
Well, I think.
I just wonder, whether they're paying rent?
Wait, the library is a separate 501c3. The library is not a part of the town.
I understand that.
That's true.
And is that correctly?
You're right.
Well, I'm certainly comfortable with asking somebody from the historical.
so I will give them any other questions we'd like to let them know in advance.
Maybe bring the utility bills.
She's got them itemized.
That's it.
Right, nobody got back their sheet.
It was part of a big packet with,
That's them?
yeah, with second generation, so one more year.
Is it up the back?
Utilities for 2023 were $4,984.02.
So that's.
That's pretty close.
Never saw it.
There were 2 pages there. That one about uses, how many people have used the hall on a regular basis, and then, oops, then there's this one. She was doing work for the black. And so that one was there, yeah. I was in that packet.
I can print next.
Thank you.
I'm sure I haven't seen this.
So I personally, I think Jane's got a legitimate question, well, are you?
I certainly remember that being part of the discussion when, so we were putting it up for
Very, yeah, it's like, it's here. Right. And I thought they go with the dolly to bring with their town documents.
Sure.
And I know, so I was aware that that's happened for a long time, so I just included that in the budget and I hadn't heard about. So I did get the request. I haven't updated anything except for the things that you've asked me to update. I will, any other things that I should let them know that you'd like to? So I'll ask them to come on the 28th and I'll put them first on the agenda. If that works for them.
Works for me.
There was a question about the library and Mary Meeting Hall. I have some knowledge of that. My wife is over there right now trying to sell books. And the library is using that space free of charge. They're not being charged for it because they're trying to use it to raise money themselves. So, and they don't make very much, unfortunately. People are not as literate or paper happy as they used to be. And so it's a good day when she works there. It's a good day when maybe 6 people come through. As a matter of fact, that's a big day. And so I don't think that we're going to get very far questioning the use of that lower space as the bookstore for the library. And yeah, so I just want to throw that in. I think whoever from the library who would come over to answer that question would be probably a little peeved. So.
Well, I would follow up on that, following my wife volunteers there for a couple hours, one afternoon a month. Generally, the only book that she sold is what she bought to bring home. So. And the stack is getting bigger.
She can donate a month. Okay, so I have that for next time. So in terms of, so you've reviewed all the organizational requests, Spectrum, Lifelight, Behavioral Health, and Maine Public. The contingency, I'm requesting 0 because we have our reserves in a place that if something goes wrong, I think we can use our reserves. It might not be for what we planned using it for, but we do have, our reserves are all in a place where they can take that emergency. So do we want to approve the contingency?
The chair would entertain a motion that we have a contingency of 0 in the budget.
I guess we can do that.
Start easy.
So we're gonna make that motion.
Yes.
Sure.
15,000 to the good.
All in favor? Okay.
Are you? Nina?
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right. So I think we will save administration and capital reserves for next time, because I know we are getting late. Recreation and public works do need to be approved from last time. No changes were made to recreation, but you didn't make a motion to approve it. Public works, I reduced the diesel winter line item by 5,000. And you do have that change. So do you want to approve?
So
Before we approve, I'll try just 2 minutes, but one of the good stories of the town is how we reduced our electric bill. With the lights, that we've got grants for street lights, with the stuff that we've had done to the building. And just in general, the town's electric bill is 33,000 in 3 categories. The administration budget is, the current budget is 5,500. The fire department, which I asked why that, and that's at 5,000 now. The streetlight thing is 15,000 with the new bulbs. Is that going to be less? And public works?
Yeah, so right, so street lighting, I'm proposing 10,000, which is a $5,000 decrease.
Okay.
So I'll say, so we haven't had a full year on the Nexamp, and not all our properties are a part of that. And we just did the lights here. So I haven't had, I'd like to, there is some savings in this budget.
But we don't have enough history yet to know what good numbers are gonna be.
Good. So, I'll agree.
So I did reduce numbers, but I didn't reduce them too harshly. Now, streetlights, I reduced from 15,000 to 10,000. I think it's actually gonna come in less than that. But we did add a couple streetlights. So I want to see what our full streetlight.
And the other things that have been mentioned is there's a 15% reduction because of our participation on the solar farm.
Yeah.
That's across.
Nope, so how that
This
works.
one was there before January, we were paying 16, that's a kilowatt hour. Now we're paying 10, that's a 30% reduction. So between 30% reduction on the basic power and the 15% reduction on top of that from the solar farm. And the speed, so I just think there's some savings there that without history, just knowing that you give 30% off because natural gas dropped from $8 to $2. And so that's what makes our.
Because our bill right now is, so we still pay a CM, so with the Nexamp, the 15%, so Public Works, fire station, and this building are on that account. I think the waterfront may be as well, but it's not, but those are the only 4 accounts. And that 15% is just in the energy side, not the transmission side. So you're not saving 15% on your whole bill, you're just saving 15% on your energy.
Which roughly
And-
half of that.
And so we're still working up the billing with that. And then the other piece was here is we just did these lights, which we expect to save on, but we also just installed heat pumps. So I don't know, so I think we'll still save because we're not gonna have the ACs in the summer. But I don't know that, right? So I think I'm hopeful that we'll save on our oil bill because now we have the heat pumps, but I don't know how the heat pumps are gonna affect our electric bill. So we've made improvements, but they're all brand new. So I didn't want to get overzealous in cutting. The only place I would, like I said, the streetlights, I cut from 15 to 10. I think we'll actually do better than that, but I'd like to see a full year of the streetlights. But so far, our streetlight bill has dropped significantly.
And so in Public Works, you went from 8,000 to 7,000 is.
So what I did is I looked at like our average, so I looked at like the yearly bill and what the average was. from previous years compared to this year to see, and then
Right,
what it looks like it's gonna, if we stuck with that average going forward.
but if the cost was 16 cents and the cost now is 10 cents. That's a 30% reduction in cost.
That's just your fuel.
No, that's just electric.
Yeah, but it's just the fuel part. It's not the CMP delivery part that's reduced at all.
It's what's,
It's only the whatever they're paying, whatever you're paying for fuel.
And when did that come
Acid-
into effect?
January.
So I haven't seen that big of a drop in our, I can relook at our bills from
It would be the.
last January to this January, but
It would be the February bill that it shows.
so
All right, I just,
I'll relook at our energy costs, but that's where, like I said, we've done the lights, but we also added heat pumps, so I'm curious to see what's gonna happen, but I think we should make out better with the heat pumps because of the air conditioners. But I don't know if that's a fact, because we haven't had the heat pumps through a summer season yet. So I hear what you're saying, George. I just haven't seen a big drastic change, and I'm not, just because they dropped their supply by that for this year, doesn't mean,
it gets changed every number, but
right, so that, and I'm in a half a year, so, okay, this year it's good, but then next year you just never know what they're gonna do. But I'll relook at that.
I am pleased that you dropped 5,000 on the street light, so that's nice. But, sorry. It's been the energy savings that the town has striven for is, it will still only show up in the numbers.
And at some point they will,
Right.
when we get enough data. And through a whole,
And public works doesn't have heat pumps, and so
Right.
there may be.
But public-
a real save.
Well, Public Works also didn't get any of the electrical work out there either, so they're just on Nextdoor. That's the only savings for,
Around the city. So,
we didn't do any projects out there.
but the basic what am I missing? The basic kilowatt hours from 16 cents to 10 cents, that doesn't count?
It does, but it's not, that's only about half your bill.
half the bill is distribution, and the other half is energy. And then you energy is wow, but the distribution charge has not.
It did slightly.
That's usually where they ask for increases for all the storm damages, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they're
Yeah.
13 million that they spent for that. That's over. Right.
So I'm optimistic, but I don't dare to,
All right. I just didn't.
1 year, George.
All right. No, I mean, once we go down public works, that 700 is baked in, so I thought it was.
Oh, the 7.
7,000.
Yeah.
I just thought if going, but bring back, that's the part you can vote again, I just wanted to.
Well, I mean, we can wait on it too. I was just bringing up those two because they're ones that you'd already reviewed. But if you would like to, we'll put that one aside because I'm gonna put energy things one last time for the next meeting. How about recreation?
So,
I'm gonna have to leave, my wife is outside waiting. And this has been there a while.
We'll do one quick on recreation. And just like the next meeting, we're gonna have a long meeting.
As compared to this one.
We still have the bulk of the budget left to do.
well, there's one for it. But
But you think we can go in soon?
I'm fine. I can't guarantee it.
When is the operation?
Tuesday before.
It's coming Tuesday.
No,
Oh,
26th.
okay.
It's 2 days before. our next
You
meeting.
will be available next Thursday?
Probably. Yeah.
Could be.
I think I could probably.
Maybe.
Can everyone get back to me tomorrow and let me know if you can make next Thursday at 3?
Yes.
And we're not taking any of the other meetings away.
Yeah.
But we have 1, 2, 3. You have 2 budgets that you've reviewed that still need approval, but you also have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 budgets that you have not reviewed yet.
Most of those are pretty small. They're
Town facilities and maintenance, but I think we'll have some good discussions. Harbor master and ACO. We did talk about, general services and debt service, so that could be, I think the big 2 left to discuss are capital reserves and administration.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. So,
Second.
where do they want?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Everyone have a good night. Good night, everyone.